The world of international politics and justice is rarely short of drama, and at times, events unfold in ways that not only surprise the public, but also redefine the contours of global power relations. One of the most unexpected developments in recent memory centers on a story that has placed Burkina Faso's young leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, at the heart of a global legal and political spectacle. The case in question involves none other than Clarence Thomas, one of the most senior justices of the United States Supreme Court, whose name has long been synonymous with conservative jurisprudence and political controversy within America. But the story of Clarence Thomas apologizing to Ibrahim Traoré over a $500 million lawsuit is not merely a tale of litigation, prestige, or financial settlements. It is a narrative that touches on the fragility of global institutions, the complexities of international law, the determination of African sovereignty, and the shifting power balance between the West and the global South. The first striking aspect of this unprecedented moment is its sheer improbability. Clarence Thomas, a towering figure in American legal history and a man accustomed to being treated with reverence in the United States, has been compelled to direct an apology toward a leader of a small West African nation, one often overlooked by the traditional centers of global power. This act alone carries symbolism that resonates deeply not only in Burkina Faso, but across Africa, where many see it as a rare reversal of the usual order of global justice. For decades, it has been leaders in Africa and other parts of the developing world who have found themselves on the receiving end of lawsuits, sanctions, and accusations emanating from Western courts or Western-backed institutions. To see the tables turned, even symbolically, offers a sense of poetic justice and an affirmation of the growing demand for equity on the international stage. At the heart of this lawsuit lies a broader dispute over the question of financial accountability, resource exploitation, and political interference. While the details are complex, the essential facts revolve around allegations that external actors, including American interests with indirect ties to influential figures, were complicit in schemes that disadvantaged Burkina Faso. Traoré, whose administration has positioned itself as a champion of sovereignty and self-determination, pursued the case with remarkable determination, refusing to bow to pressures that might have dissuaded other leaders. It is this steadfastness that elevated the lawsuit beyond a legal dispute and transformed it into a symbolic struggle between a new Africa that refuses to be marginalized and an old order represented by figures like Clarence Thomas. When the apology came, it carried immense weight. For Clarence Thomas to concede, even implicitly, that injustices were committed and that he bore some measure of responsibility in connection with a $500 million claim was more than a personal act. It represented a recognition that Africa's voice can no longer be ignored or diminished. Traoré's willingness to pursue the case to its conclusion, even against such formidable opposition, is being hailed as a model of courage across the continent. Leaders, scholars, and activists are already pointing to the case as a defining moment that illustrates how Africa is beginning to rewrite the rules of engagement with the rest of the world. The reaction across Africa has been electric. From Ouagadougou to Lagos, from Nairobi to Johannesburg, media outlets have covered the story as if it were a sporting event, one in which the underdog has managed to topple a giant. In Burkina Faso itself, the atmosphere has been celebratory, with ordinary citizens expressing pride that their leader not only defended the dignity of their nation, but also compelled one of America's most powerful men to acknowledge wrongdoing. To many, the case has become a metaphor for the broader struggle for African independence, not the political independence that was nominally achieved in the mid-20th century, but the economic and institutional independence that continues to elude the continent. But the story has not only captivated Africa. Across the world, analysts and commentators have weighed in on the implications of the case. In Europe and North America, the event has sparked debate about the accountability of leaders and institutions that have long operated with impunity on the global stage. For some, Clarence Thomas's apology is a humbling reminder that no figure, however senior, is beyond reproach. For others, it raises uncomfortable questions about how the United States projects its legal and moral authority abroad. How can America claim to be the arbiter of international justice when one of its most prominent judges is entangled in a controversy of this magnitude? At the same time, the reactions in the global South have been markedly different. In countries across Latin America, Asia, and the Middle East, the case has been hailed as yet another example of the declining dominance of Western power. Just as China, India, and Russia have begun to reshape the global economic and geopolitical order, so too are African nations, under bold leaders like Traore, beginning to assert their rightful place at the table. The apology, in this sense, is not seen merely as a legal or financial outcome, but as part of a broader narrative in which the old hierarchies of global power are being dismantled. The significance of the lawsuit and its resolution also extends to the realm of economics. The figure of $500 million is not insignificant, particularly for a country like Burkina Faso, whose GDP is modest compared to wealthier nations. But beyond the money itself, the settlement has opened new debates about reparations, restitution, and the redistribution of wealth extracted from Africa over centuries. If Burkina Faso can hold an American legal titan to account, what does this mean for other African nations that have suffered losses at the hands of multinational corporations, foreign governments, or international financial institutions? The precedent set here could encourage other nations to pursue similar claims, potentially reshaping the landscape of global litigation and economic justice. Yet, while celebrations abound, sober voices are urging caution. They remind us that apologies, however symbolic, do not automatically erase the structures of inequality that continue to disadvantage African nations. Clarence Thomas's concession may be a symbolic victory, but the larger battle for African self-determination remains ongoing. To truly build upon this moment, African leaders must channel the momentum into broader reforms, strengthening institutions, investing in education and infrastructure, and fostering regional unity that can provide a collective counterweight to external pressures. Ibrahim Traoré's role in all this cannot be overstated. At just 36 years old, he has rapidly become one of the most talked-about leaders in the world. His rise to power, his unapologetic stance against neo-colonial influence, and his insistence on placing Burkina Faso's sovereignty above all else have endeared him to millions across Africa. For Traoré, this lawsuit is not an isolated victory, but part of a broader vision. His strategy appears to be not only to defend his nation's interests in the present, but also to inspire a future in which Africa commands respect rather than pleading for recognition. The apology from Clarence Thomas has, therefore, become a global lesson in humility and a turning point in how power is perceived and exercised. It has reminded the world that even the mightiest institutions can be held accountable, and that persistence, courage, and conviction can yield outcomes that once seemed impossible. For Africa, it has reinforced the sense that the continent's time has come, that the 21st century need not be defined by exploitation and subjugation, but by empowerment and equality. The world is now left to grapple with the aftermath of this extraordinary event. In the United States, Clarence Thomas faces renewed scrutiny over his conduct, with many questioning whether his involvement in such a controversy undermines the credibility of the Supreme Court itself. In Africa, Ibrahim Traoré stands taller than ever, celebrated not only as a national leader, but as a continental hero whose boldness has set a new standard for what African leadership can achieve. And in the broader international community, The lawsuit and its resolution will be remembered as one of those rare moments when history pivots, when the unexpected becomes the inevitable, and when the actions of individuals reverberate across the world. The echoes of Clarence Thomas's apology to Ibrahim Traoré will linger for years to come. They will inspire debates in classrooms, parliaments, and town halls about justice, fairness, and the balance of global power. They will embolden those who believe that Africa's destiny should no longer be written by others, but by Africans themselves. And perhaps most importantly, they will remind us all that even in a world defined by inequality, change remains possible, sometimes sparked by moments as unlikely as an American judge apologizing to an African soldier-turned-president over a $500 million lawsuit. In the final analysis, this episode reveals both the fragility and the possibility inherent in our global order. It exposes the weaknesses of institutions that have too long been shielded from accountability, while also highlighting the strength of leaders who dare to challenge the status quo. For Africa and for the world, the message is clear. The age of unquestioned Western dominance is fading, and in its place emerges a more multipolar, more contested, and potentially more just global system.